Howdy there, folks. This is Lapidary Dave, and right now I will be doing something a little bit differently than I'm used to doing here on Lapidary Time. I will be taking this money clip knife combo knife thing, and I will be putting a stone on it, much like you see here. This particular clip belongs to Sweet Sugar Lynn. It's Korean. It's obviously much older than this one. It's made out of brass plated with steel or nickel, where this one is definitely a steel, maybe a mild steel housing with stainless steel blades. The one that belongs to Sugar Lynn has a perforated surface. I assume that's not just an aesthetic, but it also is there to help keep the stone or whatever you're adhering to the metal, to keep it on there. It gives it a place for the glue to grab onto. I've had problems in the past when I was gluing stones onto pins, like safety pin style pins for your shirts and hats. Sometimes they would just pop right off. And I realized it's because the metal surface was just too smooth, and I had to rough up the surfaces to keep the stone on. I will be doing that to this to this knife, money clip. I'll be roughing it up, as well as drilling a couple holes to give the epoxy somewhere to really grab onto. The stone I will be gluing on there is this beautiful material. I slabbed this material a couple weeks ago for a good friend and customer of mine. I believe she said this material is from Mexico and it's very old. You can see here where I marked the stone. I'm going to cut this proudly. I'm going to cut it proud using my trim saw blade on my tile saw. And then I will be gluing it on there. I'm not going to just glue it on there and then try to cut because I can mess it up. So yeah, it's going to look absolutely fantastic. This is a very awesome money clip. The knife is very interesting, even though the blades, or the blade in the file. Is it a blade in a file? Yeah, the blade. Yeah, this one's definitely just a file. The blade and the file are stainless steel, but somebody sat there and sharpened that bad girl. This one was definitely used, and I appreciate that. Whoever had this for what looks like over 20 years, I really appreciate their use. It looks fantastic. It tells 1,000 stories. This one's marked Korea, this older one, and this new one's marked China. Whoever glued this stone on there didn't even really glue it even. This pendant, this knife here is even on a flat surface, and if you can see there, the stone is just kind of glued on there. It doesn't ruin it. In fact, it gives it a feeling of authenticity. This is a fantastic piece of turquoise. It looks like a piece similar to a piece that my friend has that I believe he calls Battle Creek or Battle Mountain or something. Fantastic turquoise. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to go perforate the surface as well as drill a couple holes. Then I'm going to be trimming this up on the tile saw. It's going to be fun. It's going to take at least 2 days to make this video because I'm going to have to epoxy it. I give my epoxy at least a full 24 hours before I cut a stone that has any kind of epoxy on it. I am a big believer of waiting 3 days, though, before you do anything crazy. This is some kind of cheap epoxy, I don't know. Perhaps like a Loctite or something from Walmart. Fantastic. Alright, let's do it. Alright folks, I'm here at my tile saw fitted with a trim saw blade. I'm going to go ahead and do this pretty quickly. It's still a little chilly here in Taos, New Mexico, even though it's springtime. Alright. Alright folks, so I was trimming up this piece nice and easy here on my slab saw that I use as a trim saw. Excuse me, tile saw I use as a trim saw. And the stone broke on one of the natural brown spots. It's not a big deal. If this was going to be a piece of like a pendant or something, I would just reshape it. But since I'm gluing this to my stone, it'll put itself back together when I actually glue it. So I'm not worried about that at all. This break is completely natural, hence the brown spots inside. It probably would have happened when I was carving it anyway. It's just a lucky coincidence that I'm about to glue this to my stone, to my knife. Fantastic material. Extremely hard. Much harder than any nephrite jade I have. Probably the hardest stone that I've worked so far. Alright, see you inside. Alright folks, I'm here in the studio. Sorry for the bad lighting. I have the stone here and I have the knife. Instead of drilling holes, I think I'm just gonna really scratch up that surface. I'm also gonna do it to the stone. I'm not gonna worry about the holes. The other one is doing just fine with some surface scratches. I think this one will do just fine too. Alright folks, horrible lighting, but I did the job, and I did it all with the flex shaft. I also, I used water, of course, even though I wasn't drilling, because I wanted to keep the stone dust down, obviously, but also the steel dust. Metal is just as poisonous as stone. Really bad, nasty stuff. I did come around a few times with a shaky hand, and I nicked the face that I wasn't trying to grind, but I don't mind. This is a personal piece. It's still a little bit unfortunate. Anyway, let's go inside. Alright folks, this is what the knife looks like after I marred it up with my flex shaft. Looking fantastic. And here is the stone that broke earlier again. This is the side that I marred up using the flex shaft as well. It's really tough to see here. But looking great. I have some 2-part epoxy whipped up here. It looked kind of weird. All kinds of weird stuff can happen to 2-part epoxy, like if it gets too cold and such. I'm going to do my best not to get the glue on anything that is not just this flat metal, and I'm trying not to put too much on there because I don't want it to ooze off and keep my blade from opening up later. Trying to do this fast. Also, for whatever reason, if this doesn't work, it is looking really ooey and gooey. Maybe it got cold this winter or something. I'll just pop the stone off and use a proper one. This particular rock knife gluing situation is pretty forgiving. Okay. Forgot to mention earlier. Let me take that off. Yeah. Forgot to mention earlier that the other side of my blade is not a file of the one I'm gluing, like the one that belongs to Sugar Lynn. It's actually a pair of scissors that probably would have a hard time cutting almost anything. Alright, I'm going to put this on there. I'm going to give it some good room. Slipping and sliding, excuse me for my sloppiness. And now I'm going to put the piece that broke on there and mush it around. little bit of extra of whatever I can get off here on there. Just for some added support on the part that broke there. I'm actually looking for a little bit of ooze out of the broken spot that definitely tells me that there's enough glue in there. Alrighty. I'm going to pull that down again. And now I'm going to let it dry on its belly. I feel it getting harder. Hopefully it works. I'm just going to throw this stuff away. Ew. So I'm going to let it dry on its belly just so it doesn't goo over, impeding the blade and the pair of scissors from opening and closing. I don't think these scissors can cut much of anything, but I will use those to scratch. I will find stones that are about as hard as it and that are a little bit harder than it, and try to guess what the MOH of this little pair of scissors is. I know it sounds silly, but this way I can go around and scratch things with it, and I have a good guesstimation of how hard the material I'm scratching is from knowing how hard this thing is. Alright folks, I flipped the piece upside down so that it's laying on the metal piece. This way it doesn't stick to the paper when it finishes drying. I'm going to go ahead and let this sit at least 24 hours before I take it to the lab. It's going to be awesome. Alright, see you folks there. Alright folks, this is dried up nicely. Just under 24 hours. It did settle a little bit farther back than I wanted it to. I should have been watching it, or at least quadruple checked or something, but everything's going to work out fantastically. Like I said before, the break wasn't a problem. Everything worked out. It's back on there. It looks just like it did after I scraped the glue off. I'm going to lap it to 60 grit and then 180 grit. I'm pretty much just going to lick the sides to chew it up. I am going to be very careful not to hit these blades, not to break the stone either, because this is an extremely hard stone. It's some kind of jasper. I don't know what it is. I probably should have done something else, but this is just beautiful. Anyway. Alright folks, this is the stone after I roughly cleaned it up. That was an absolute ordeal. I have to cut the sides with the blade open on the side, so I have to take off the hood. It's getting very messy. My hands are wet, and I don't feel the blade, and I sliced my finger. I'm going to save you guys that, if you don't mind. But besides all of that, nicking the sides here and there, the back of the blades, the scissor part completely broke. It's just broken. I'm going to have to share that with you folks a little bit later. But that's okay, because I was going to use that as a steel awl anyway. This money clip is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to switch on over to the 180 grit lap. I'm going to have to do the same thing. Very messy and such. But it's looking great. Check that out. I took off the money clip. The belt clip mechanism thingy that actually holds the money. Right now it's just kind of a knife, but beautiful. Alright folks, this is what it looks like after the flat lap. Pretty much finished. Looking absolutely fantastic, looking really polished. It's really difficult to see those 180 scratches. I don't know if you could see that right there in the corner. That's what's left over of the scissors. They fell apart right away. and then it was a bad idea just to keep this because it was kind of loose. So I took it off, and it's just going to have to do with a blade and a file, and I think, personally, that looks a little bit better anyway, hanging off of your money clip. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to knock this out to 3,000. I'm not going to stop in between grits because I have to really pay attention not to hit the blade with my wheels. I'm not worried about the blade, I'm worried about my wheels. So I'm actually going to be lapping over the steel. The steel is pretty soft compared to the stone, a couple dozen times softer, I'm sure. I'm going to work those corners just a bit, but yeah, see you when I'm done. Okay, here's that finished piece. Grinded to 3,000. Looks absolutely fantastic. It's super shiny, super glossy. This material is extremely hard. Where it broke, and I glued it back together, that bottom brown line, you can't even tell. There's no difference between those lines. I mean, this bottom line and the lines that are above it from the piece that broke and the pieces that didn't. It looks great. Absolutely fantastic. So right now I'm going to buff this sweetheart up. I'm going to put on my respirator, of course. Buff this up with some Fabuluster. I'm also going to buff the metal. The metal is going to take a fantastic polish. It's going to dirty at my wheel, but it'll be alright. Alright folks, absolutely over the top. I'm going to take this inside, get away from these fumes, and show it off in a little bit better lighting. Fantastic. Alright folks, here's that beautiful green jasper of some kind or another, maybe from Mexico. And here is a rough piece right next to the polished piece. Looking fantastic. Again, the scissor mechanism on this side didn't make it, but that's fine. I wouldn't really have many uses for it anyway. This piece is not perfect. You can see some nicks and knacks here from the file and from the Dremel and whatever. That doesn't bother me at all. Put the clip back on there. This could be used to fashion this knife to someone's pants or to put some money in there. I don't have any to show you. That's my little joke. Yeah, looking great. The file is useful for streaking stones and such, and the knife, of course, for scratching at stuff and for cutting things. I'm excited. This came out absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Viki, again for the stone. I believe this stone might be one of the hardest stones I've ever carved on Lapidary Time, if not the toughest stone. When I was sawing it, it like shattered in a weird way. It is just wildly tough. But I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. Got Ruby Medina behind the kachina. Throw that up there for me. It's a little beat up, but that's fine. When I make these again, I will be casting them out of silver, and I don't think it will have a knife and a file. It'll just be a money clip. But this was fun to make out of stainless steel. I really enjoy these brass with nickel-plated ones or whatever. These feel good. The knife is just a better quality. It's thicker and stuff. But it was fun. Love you folks. See you next time. Ciao.